Oh God, I've eaten. I've eaten my. I've eaten my sandwich a bit too quick, and I'm getting indigestion. Oh God. What, you didn't like the 2.5 hours of Eden Prime and Citadel talking?
This program contains content that may disturb some viewers.
Oh, it's Australian. There you go. You're right home there, Crabs.
So the events unfolding around us are making clearer than ever that we're living in the final part of the last days, undoubtedly the final part of the final part of the last days, shortly before the last day of the last days.
8 million Jehovah's Witnesses around the globe believe the end is nigh for a world that is controlled by Satan.
Yeah, and how long has that religion existed?
They will be saved.
He may use hailstones of undisclosed size to destroy those wicked humans. Now, during that time, will we need to fear the natural elements? Not at all.
They are raised in this kind of fear bubble in which they're constantly being told the end of the world is near, Jehovah God is going to murder people who are unbelievers, you are going
this
to
motherfucker.
be judged.
Which motherfucker? Who fucked your mother? What's going on here? Him?
The organisation say the real danger is from this group of ultra-conservative biblical literalists. Former Jehovah's Witnesses have come forward to expose practices they say.
It's like when the ex-Scientologist people come out to say their piece.
Witnesses are just lovely people, friendly, nice-looking people who maybe a bit quirky, who knock on doors. And it's very difficult to help people understand just how dangerous this group is and what a harrowing experience people who leave have to go through.
They will rip you apart.
Oh, him, like.
They rip your reputation
it's like
apart. They rip your
coked up
person.
Mr. Rogers or something.
I mean, they even rip me apart as a mum.
Spending 50 years as a Jehovah's Witness, particularly once you realise that it's not the truth, has a devastating effect upon you.
A Royal Commission exposed the treatment of victims of child abuse within the Jehovah's Witnesses.
Well, it's a pretty cruel way of dealing with someone, isn't it, who has suffered sexual
We're learning about Jehovah's Witnesses.
Well, to have 1,800 victims, over 1,000 perpetrators, and not a single case.
Was he like the L. Ron Hubbard?
To the authorities, to the police.
L. Ron Hubbard of
I couldn't believe that.
Of it. Hey, it's Mick Foley.
In the years since the Royal Commission, little has changed.
If you refuse to accept there's a problem, then nothing can ever be done about it.
Now in Australia, those scarred by this group are fighting back.
I didn't know that. It's worse than the Catholics.
33 years of my life.
Well, I didn't know there was a Jehovah's Witness problem in Australia. What is this? What is this?
Tonight on Four Corners, we investigate the secretive world of the Jehovah's Witnesses. We expose the practices that continue to damage a new generation of children. We show how psychological warfare is used against former members, and we reveal how its bitter fight to protect its reputation and assets re-traumatises those who dare to stand up to it.
I think never mind. Just said something bitter again. Bearing witness. The Four Corners. Shit.
In 2019, Jehovah's Witnesses from around the world came to Melbourne to celebrate their enduring love for God.
Melbourne? I thought it was Melbourne. What is Melbourne shit?
A slick 3-day program of prayer, song and preaching.
Clothe yourselves with love.
By the way, Ben, I told them about the story at the back, in the back of Walter and Fred's car with the awesome God and drinking spirits.
What other group of persons on earth are interested in discussing love that doesn't fail?
But for some former Jehovah's Witnesses, this love has failed them.
We are here at the protest.
This protest was a defining moment in the life of one former Jehovah's Witness, Renee Pickles.
And we're set up over here as well.
Related to Dee Dee, Tommy, Stu, Drew, Dill.
That is just incredible. What an impact. I'm so proud. I see this and I just go, that is just fantastic. So proud. And those slain by Jehovah
Pretty much.
on that day will be from one end of the earth clear to the other end of the earth. They will not be mourned, nor will they be gathered up or buried. They will become like manure on the surface of the ground.
The Jehovah's Witnesses had been Renee's world from birth to her early 20s. The organisation controlled all aspects of her life until it cast her out, severing her.
They were cool guys, but they were fucking weird.
Close to.
Most of the time, I was a really happy kid because I
Didn't get a lift
honestly
after that
believed
day, though, did we?
I was going to survive Armageddon. We were doing everything right. We were going to inherit the earth, and
Listen to
a lot of
Aerosmith.
people would be dying. A lot of people would die, and there would be millions of bodies strewn when Armageddon came. But I was pretty confident I was going to make it through.
You guys
And
were gonna
once those
live,
bodies
so you
were,
had to clean up afterwards. Imagine surviving Armageddon, and you'd be like, okay, so what are we gonna do? We're just gonna let the dead sit out in the open, or we're just gonna clean. It's like, okay, we got like 50,000 Jehovah's Witnesses all digging mass graves to bury the billions of people that didn't make it. Fuck that.
And get to enjoy all of the spoils.
John and Jane Heyman have been tramping the streets of
Racist. Wow. No.
witnesses in the mid-60s.
The Jehovah's Witnesses have long been spreading the word about the impending apocalypse.
We don't want to hold you up. My husband and I are two of Jehovah's Witnesses.
Anticipated doomsdays came and went in 1914, 1925 and 1975.
To some, the Jehovah's Witnesses appear as gullible, even comic fundamentalists. To a few, they're prophetic and man's last hope of salvation. But regardless of what one thinks of their message, one can't help admire the sheer persistence of members like John and Jane Heyman as they try to warn Turak housewives of the end of the world.
Well, I'm sorry, at the moment I've got the children having lunch.
The pandemic has put a stop to door knocking and temporarily shuttered the organisation's kingdom halls.
Now the words coronavirus and COVID-19.
But the Jehovah's Witnesses believe COVID is a sign of impending doom.
He looks like a robot. He looks like an AI.
This disease is distressing, to be sure. But we're really not surprised to see the world in the grip of such pestilence, are we? Jesus made it clear at Luke 21:11 that pestilence would be part of the sign of the last days.
Okay. Seriously, like, if you listen to like that guy talk and not think he's a fucking loot, and you buy into his shit, you deserve to be exploited. What the fuck is that? Is that Joe Biden? No, Joe Biden would have fell asleep halfway through that fucking speech. Jesus wept. Yeah, it's the governing body. He's the king of the Jehovah's Witnesses. He's like Jehovah's second in command. Good lord. Doesn't look lost enough. Hey, on the bright side, the cult has some cute girls in it. Wait, how old is she? You know what? Jesus.
The organisation's in-house production studio pumps out slick instructional videos that deliver its unchanged message. The end is coming for everyone except them.
It's fucking Gandalf and the Riders of Rohan.
Jehovah is guarding the lives of his loyal ones.
Witnesses are told they are being persecuted by worldly institutions.
Where are they? Check the basement.
And are taught to distrust everyone outside the group.
They're terrified about the idea of what the world is like. They're told that the world is a scary place out to get them. They're told the governments are going to eventually soon attack them.
Welcome. This month's program will help us show love and respect in marriage.
The Jehovah's Witnesses promote the idea of male headship. Women aren't allowed leadership roles.
Jehovah placed the woman under the headship of the man.
No, I knew a girl in college that was a Jehovah's Witness. What a waste.
And as such, her role is to be in subjection to him.
Rules are set by a US-based governing body of 8 men who sit at the pinnacle of the
She had the
Jehovah's
biggest
Witnesses
tits and the nicest smile.
called the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society. All witnesses are expected...
Wait, is this Australian Parliament or like the fucking or a group of Jehovah's Witnesses? What is this? It's like, or maybe it's like stonecutters.
to obey their instructions and doctrines that influence every aspect of life. Jehovah's Witnesses believe these men are anointed as the voice of God on earth.
There is no other means by which
Yeah, apparently so.
Jehovah's Witnesses communicate.
You have a big grin on my face when I whip it out, but I think they're more laughing at me than laughing with me.
Through that conduit of the governing body that Jehovah speaks. So whatever they say is to be accepted as the word of God and not to be confused with the speaking of an opinion of men. They are absolute leaders with absolute power over the organization.
Doubt and fear surround me.
The basic premise of their belief system is that the outside world, the world outside of what they call the truth, the belief of the Jehovah's Witnesses, has been corrupted by Satan and is evil.
So this video is totally going to get a copyright strike just from me reacting.
Go to school in the real world. They isolate themselves. They see that...
Whoa, wait, 2 inches? Man, thank you. I've never been... That's such a compliment. 2 inches, thank you. Goodness.
The governing body live at a complex they call Bethel, or the House of God, in New York State. This world headquarters is a 100-acre site that replaced a sprawling Brooklyn campus, sold off in recent years for over $1 billion.
Watchtower, huh? It looks
the governing
like...
body oversees a vast global real estate portfolio held in regional headquarters and kingdom halls built by congregations around the world.
They're a big multi-billion-dollar asset business. Multi-billion-dollar properties. They sold their assets in New York and moved to New York State.
Definitely a cult.
Their new headquarters.
Just skip to the part where they moved to Guatemala or wherever the hell they ended up and drink the Kool-Aid. Whatever the hell happened there.
Properties, and last year
Cuba.
reported an income of over $32 million. As a religious charity, it receives significant tax exemptions.
A charity doesn't have to pay income tax on its earnings.
Same with the Scientology.
They also have deductible gift recipient status, which is where the donor gets the tax write-off. There may be other taxes, including state taxes, which are forgiven for charities.
I think it's really ironic that an organization that's...
God, isn't that the top? Wait, so there's a religion about the apocalypse and Jehovah is not even a fucking top of the food chain?
Create a long-term investment portfolio with real estate that they carefully maintained.
Emus can't fly. That's why they built big buildings in Australia. I don't know.
Whoever holds back his rod hates his son,
but the one
Whoa.
who loves him disciplines him diligently.
Bill Hahn was his congregation's treasurer, known as the accounts servant. He was born into the organisation and raised his children as witnesses.
What did you miss out on? Soccer. That was my big thing as a kid. I'd ask every year, can I play soccer? And I'd be like, no. It interrupts it. You know, we've got to go witnessing, we've got to, meetings, birthdays. We never celebrated birthdays. School Christmas activities, never involved. You grew up to feel like you were a foreigner in your own country.
And yet you did the same thing to your own children.
They were probably around 10, 12 at the time, and we knocked on a door, and it was a nice fella, and he said to the boys, "Oh, boys, wouldn't you rather be out playing soccer in the morning?" And my dear middle boy Oliver just like, "Oh, no, it's all right. We like to meet people and talk to them." And I felt so sorry for him, and it really just came back to me of all that loss that I felt as a child.
And then there's the fear, recounted by so many former Jehovah's Witnesses.
What would get me was the little children out in the world, as they called it, because they were worldly people. The thought of them dying, that used to upset me, because we were taught that only Jehovah's people in the organisation would survive Armageddon. Everyone else on the outside would die. So it was our job to go out witnessing to try and bring as many people in as we could. And if you didn't take the opportunity to witness, you had their blood on your hands.
No, probably not. Film Friday? Oh. I don't think I've actually seen Friday.
Opinion, the environment
It's a new one coming out, right?
Witnesses can be very damaging for children. They are raised in this kind of fear bubble in which they're constantly being...
By the way, I like that they have this fucking mushroom cloud behind them and this family is just nonchalantly walking past it.
Jehovah God is going to murder people who are unbelievers.
Jehovah God.
You're going to be judged. And there's this pressure to save people, to go door to door, to proselytize. And at the same time, no birthdays, no holidays. It's really kind of abysmal.
To be fair, I like the artwork here.
From a young age, that
cool as hell.
Relationships are unacceptable.
Carrie drew two mommies. She told me they're married to each other. My teacher says that all that matters
no, here we
is
go.
that people love each other and that they're happy.
Well, people have their own ideas about what is right and wrong. But what matters is how Jehovah feels.
Well, it could have gone worse. It could have gone a lot worse.
Leviticus 18:22. You must not lie down with a male in the same way that you lie down with a woman. It is a detestable act.
Adam Van Werdum left the Jehovah's Witnesses in 2019.
Oh yeah, it's absolute propaganda.
You were told that you can pray the gay away and you can make a big effort, and with God's blessing, you can become straight, basically. So
Pray the gay away, yeah.
Certainly from an early age, I knew I was gay, but I just never expressed it. I was terrified of expressing it. The hostility in the congregations for gay people is quite extreme.
To decline higher education and have the
independent thought and analysis is discouraged.
I suppose it doesn't help if you're on your knees most of the time to pray.
higher education often instills
Maybe you should pray standing up.
a sense of superiority and self-reliance that is in direct opposition to the Christian personality. We will not need doctors or lawyers after Armageddon, but we will need carpenters.
Standing 69, like a Undertaker doing the tombstone pile driver. Yeah, I'd probably rather have two dads than two mums. Wouldn't know how to talk to women. Well, I don't anyway, but like, you know.
I was one of the 6 kids in the school that was chosen early entry, And I remember when I got home that I showed Mum and we laughed and threw it away. Why would we get an education from Satan's system when we had the best education from Jehovah's organisation?
Soaking? No, I haven't heard of soaking.
Science docs at school, and I got into a Bachelor of Science at Sydney University. But I never did it because I was told it was a waste of time.
In my opinion, they discourage people because in higher education, people are encouraged to critically analyze things, to look at historical
But stuff only allowed on Tuesday.
objectively, to look at the evidence.
That's why it's called Taboo
this
Tuesday.
is seen by Jehovah's Witnesses as threatening because much of
What,
their
Shitbox
history
Saturday?
and their beliefs
Or Fartbox
are not
Friday?
predicated on things that are that strong foundationally.
No
Or Mudslide Monday. I don't fucking know.
Any sin that they may commit on the testimony of 2 witnesses or on the testimony of 3 witnesses, the matter should be established.
Oh.
Moral rules of the Jehovah's Witnesses.
So if don't thrust, just let the other person back up into you until. That's just.
In a manual called Shepherd
That's
the
like
Flock of
guilt.
God.
That's just guilty. Guilty.
You could almost say it's the
Oh,
elders'
the-
Bible. They abide by everything.
So what they do? They just like one person lies down,
The elders still have to
the other person sits on him and lets gravity do all the work, and technically no one's at fault, no one's backing up, no one's pushing in.
And sat on hundreds of these committees.
I don't know.
Cases would have been fornication, adultery,
So you're just resting your tip on the end of the entrance, aren't you? It's just
smoking or drinking.
that's it.
For each individual, it's
Wow.
quite humiliating because
Really
they have to
relieving our
reveal these
sexual
personal
frustrations here with a fucking prod at the entry hole
things and private
or exit
that
anal.
they have to reveal it to, within amongst
Shudders. Yeah, I agree. Shudders.
quite intimidating, and especially for young women to face 3 men about private issues like that. And
Especially when one of the men look like you.
interrogate them to really find whether they were truly repentant. So the questions were really, really.
Oh, so it's like so you wear
for the victim.
it's like wearing a sock or a condom. You just
Well,
and then just don't do. What a waste of time.
How often did you?
What are you gonna do? Just just sit in, lay up in there and just wait to go soft. And he.
These are the kind of questions that each person would be facing. Yeah.
The experience can be excruciating for those facing these panels, like Renee Pickles.
I was subjected to a judicial commission, and it was one of the worst experiences of my life. I believe it is the main reason for a lot of my trauma. It was basically 3 men who were in an interview panel with me. I was not allowed to bring a support person in, and I was interviewed. Or
I mean,
I would say
with
interrogated.
2 men, that'd be hard to do. I mean, you can like
sittings.
with a man and a woman, you can at least like get up in there,
as to what I had done.
rest. The intimacy is nice, but like
use the Holy Spirit to
with
determine whether I would still
2 guys, I don't know.
in the congregation.
Could you give me
I have to get comfortable. I couldn't. Depends on positioning and how flexible people are, I guess.
Did you fondle? Did you touch each other in the genitals? Did he have an ejaculation? Did his ejaculation touch your skin?
Did you squirt all over her face?
21, Renee was
Nice.
judged to be unrepentant and issued with a notification of disfellowshipping. She was cast out into a world she was completely unprepared for.
I had nobody to turn to, and then I'd lost my entire family and community, so it was like I landed in a different planet, and it was an extremely lonely period of time. It was unbelievable.
So this chick squirted on some guy's face or someone else's face, and then or whatever. I have no idea what's going on. We're just taking the piss, aren't we? I keep turning. I'm moving the chat over here because I keep turning my fucking head. I keep turning my fucking head to look at chat.
Known as Shark.
Gark 3000, Jesus.
supposed to be loving discipline. Actually, to me, it's inhumane to the point of the complete shunning of not having anybody in your life, talking to anyone, everyone being completely removed from your life that you've ever known, especially when you've been born and raised in an organization, and all of that is taken away. That is inhumane. It is not loving.
American Brandy Schmiedel, who lives in Colorado, is the niece of governing body member Stephen Lett. She shunned her brother Stephen Camp when he came out as gay.
I knew his family meant the world to him. It was one of the most important things to Stephen. For him to be faced with this decision was probably one of the biggest things he was ever going to have to face.
After 5 agonising years, Brandy privately resumed contact with her brother, but the rest of the family continued to shun him. In 2020, he committed suicide, leaving these instructions for his funeral. Things I don't want. The mention of religion or JWs talked about upon my passing. They were the source of where this all began.
It was one of the most important things in his life was his family and his friends, and he lost both.
Soon after Stephen's death, his uncle, Stephen Lett, gave this address about the
God damn it, Ben.
apocalypse.
There'll be many others who will come back.
Eye mask. Let's stretch him up like.
Way of life. I was thinking as an example.
Speaking of eyes, and what the fuck? Okay, first of all, let's break this down. Let's break this down. Okay, can we? You know what? We're going to go into Photoshop at a later date. And, at a later date, and we're gonna make an emote out of this. We're gonna make an emote out of that because that's just fucking ridiculous. We'll probably put it on BTTV. Look at it, like his eyes are bulging, his eyebrows are touching the sky. He's got eye bags that could carry about 6 tons of baggage. His nose is crooked. He's ready to deep throat the microphone. What the fuck? This guy is a. People look at this guy and think, yes, I'm going to trust this guy. With eyes wide open. Well, I just heard the news today. Seems Jehovah hates the gays. With eyes wide open. What about this?
It comes back in the resurrection. And he really thought, and he was taught, and he came to believe that God accepted him with that lifestyle. But now he's going to learn about Jehovah's moral standards.
It was extraordinarily insensitive, especially this is just a few months after my brother had died. It did give me the courage to...
Oh, stop talking about your dead brother. I'm trying to laugh.
Because this needs to end. Because
Millhouse, lower those eyebrows. And the other one.
If not thousands of people reach out to me saying that they have experienced almost the exact same thing that Stephen has gone through, or they know someone that has, and the vast majority of them have either attempted or they know that someone has killed themselves for the same reasons.
The closed world of the Jehovah's Witnesses was exposed in 2015 by the Australian Royal Commission into institutional responses to child sexual abuse.
It was an astounding process. We were, perhaps contrary to what the public believed, quite a small team of lawyers. There were 3 or 4 of us working on this case.
James Pender was part of the team that uncovered a vast cache of internal files compiled by Jehovah's Witnesses over 60 years.
Everything's written down, so the allegations...
Ben! No!
What was said and what was done is all recorded.
You're going to heck. You're not... You're
provided to the branch office
unrepentant.
And kept on file.
Disfellowshipped. Disfellowshipped.
The files documented allegations and confessions of the abuse of more than 1,800 children.
Yeah, it's not good. Shunning people to the point of suicide. Nobody should be shunned for differing opinions or differing lifestyles. It's fucking fucked up.
Allegations by a perpetrator, recording the number of victims, the age
People,
of victims,
cults, thinking they're better than other people.
Was a ministerial elder or a servant at the time. The positions of people that knew and all the relevant details. So it was a very forensic process, and I think in retrospect quite traumatic.
The views of my chatters aren't my own.
The Australian branch office had alerted authorities about any...
This is the Wild West. I mean, I don't usually do... here's the thing.
It was the scale.
I'm enjoying this. I'm enjoying watching shitty documentaries on YouTube.
What was recorded, the intimacy of what was
you know, I'm open to doing this more often. You know, just chatting and watching stupid shit. I'm open to it. I'm open to it.
Well, to have 1,800 victims, over 1,000 perpetrators, and not a single case be...
Yeah, some of them are being greedy. They take it too. I only had one.
I couldn't believe that. If anyone comes to you and does not bring this teaching, do not receive him into your homes or say a greeting to him. For the one who says a greeting to him is a
it's Mick Foley.
Wicked works.
The scale of abuse staggered Kevin Dean, who was a Jehovah's Witness elder in the US.
When you look at the numbers in Australia of Jehovah's Witnesses, and then you look at the numbers in the United States...
I was sitting here with my tits out.
Witnesses, well, I knew that the situation is even much worse, probably, in the United States than it is in Australia.
Diddlers with the fucking Catholic Church and the... I mean, all churches, all religions have weird child sex stuff. It's fucking fucked up.
Taken by a judicial committee of elders,
really ruins the... ruins them. You know, like...
So if there isn't a second witness, then likely that allegation is not considered to be justified.
Like, it seems to be like paedophiles in all types of religion, you know, just some more than others, but shouldn't like judge the entire religion on it. But obviously this is this is kind of messed up.
The perpetrator and the victim are present. So that's a very dangerous practice, that they won't accept that an allegation has occurred without two witnesses.
The Jehovah's Witnesses have contested the Royal Commission findings and continue to dispute that the organisation has a problem with its handling of child abuse. It commissioned a 2018 report that argued that the Royal Commission had an inherent unfairness and that the organisation shouldn't be held responsible for abuse that occurs within the families of witnesses.
The argument
no good.
The Jehovah's Witnesses, unlike other religious organizations,
hey, Stephen King.
No custodial care of children. So they don't have schools.
I wonder if Pennywise is a Jehovah's Witness.
Programs. They don't have catechisms or that kind.
He's probably Jehovah himself.
Programs where they take custodial care of children, and so you can't hold them to the same standards that you would other religious institutions that do have custodial care.
When you say two witnesses, you mean two eyewitnesses or two Jehovah's Witnesses?
The commission was that because the Jehovah's Witness rules and regulations determine how all
handling stuff internally, settling stuff like that out of court.
That actually there was no distinction between the life of the family and the
no
of the church, and that the institutional context did actually include the families.
The Royal Commission slammed the Jehovah's Witnesses for failing to report child sexual abuse to police and made 3 key recommendations. It should involve women in its judicial committees, abandon the 2-witness rule in abuse cases.
Why is there so many bald people in this documentary?
The witnesses say they won't implement the recommendations because their practices are based on the Bible.
The policies and practices themselves are based on Bible scriptures. They're outdated and they're just inappropriate for the way in which child sexual abuse tends to occur.
Is there an age of consent written in the Bible? Because
child sexual abuse.
maybe they go off like whoever's the youngest person to do the diddle in the Bible. That's the age of consent.
Elders are bound by the rules set out
Fucking
in the
freaks.
most important guidebook, Shepherd the Flock of God. It states that child sexual abuse is a gross sin. It advises that when an allegation is made, 2 Jehovah's Witness elders should immediately call the legal department and await instruction.
The book doesn't give any direction about reporting anything to the authorities. It's more so about dealing with the Jehovah's Witness branch legal department. Nothing about the authorities at all.
In a statement to Four Corners, the Jehovah's Witnesses say they will report an allegation of abuse.
So yeah, like if you have to have like 2 witnesses.
By law, or if a child is in danger, regardless of whether there are 2 witnesses.
So you have like 2 witnesses like who have to watch it happen and let it happen so they can report it. So one gets done for diddling and the other 2 get done for letting it happen and watching it. I don't.
The organisation has also updated its worldwide child abuse guidelines to say that victims and their parents have the right to report child abuse to authorities.
I think the language is important there. It's your right to go and report it to the police, but you're not being told to do that. Certainly if somebody was told by an elder to go and report it to the police the way the organization works, then they would do that.
All you need is a sentence that says, if you hear of child abuse, report it to the police. And I believe that's the best thing that could ever happen for Jehovah's Witnesses and that organization. Just one sentence.
Accept Christ at last minute and die and go to heaven.
Until last year, Kevin Dean was an elder in the US. After receiving a report of child abuse,
He's got a beard like an elder. I like his beard.
To the legal department.
It's a beautiful beard.
Fill in a form that would be used to defend the organisation from litigation.
And so as I'm filling this out, I don't understand why I'm doing this and what kind of litigation, what kind of legal trouble would we be in? Why would I need a lawyer? And when I read the legal verbiage in it, that's when I realized that this is not about protecting children. They were concerned about protecting the organization.
What happened next staggered Kevin Dean.
About a couple of weeks after I had these conversations with the legal department, I get a phone call and the brother says, Brother Dean, we want you to destroy all your notes, written and electronic. And I think they were afraid that there would be some kind of a contradiction between the elders' notes and the questionnaire. And so since we'd already filled out the questionnaire, they didn't want anything to conflict with that.
He decided to leave the Jehovah's Witnesses and testify against them in a US investigation.
Do you think it was about protecting the organisation?
Absolutely. I think they were so worried about protecting their assets. The Watchtower, they care about money, and they don't want any kind of litigation that will mean that they have to pay out money.
Yeah.
2 years
I mean,
after the
same. You can say the same about Scientology. It's an organisation of, you know, they used to, you know, organisation in practice, but religion legally because they slash charity, charitable organisation because they want to do tax evasion.
Of conversations. If the so-called wild talk of a member is recorded in detail, it may not be accurately assessed when reviewed out of context. And any personal notes should be destroyed once a summation of the hearing has been prepared.
To knowingly destroy documents that are related to a case involving child sexual abuse, that would be crucial and critical evidence to either a criminal prosecution or a civil case, would be against the law in many of the jurisdictions.
in many of our cases, those have been the critical documents. What's kept in a confidential file are forms.
Lock them up so nobody else could be a victim.
But in practice, in many congregations, elders would put their notes in those files, and their notes would have the details. The notes would tell the real story.
That firm is notorious, right?
US lawyer Erwin Zalkin has 7 lawsuits in train against the governing body for alleged child sexual abuse crimes within the congregation.
We've called this press conference today to announce that we filed yet another lawsuit against the Jehovah's Witnesses.
He wants to hold the leaders accountable and have them testify publicly in the US for the first time.
They will do everything.
I don't think it's about apologising because it's just they're not sorry they did it. They sorry got caught.
That includes keeping everything in-house.
Lawyers who have battled the Jehovah's Witnesses in the US and UK say the organisation has a global problem with both child abuse and the way it responds to victims. Kathleen Hallisey brought the first successful civil case in the UK against the Jehovah's Witnesses. It's
hey, one for us.
Watchtower.
The abuser actually admitted to the abuse, but it was never reported to the authorities, and allegedly they took steps to protect other children in the organization, but obviously that's a difficult thing for them to do, and therefore he went on to abuse A and many others, and that's not the first case that I've seen like that.
Overseas, lawyers say the organisation drags cases out until the last possible moment and then settles to avoid courtroom examination of its practices.
Their attitude to these cases are that
that
they
makes
don't
sense.
want to really look to resolving the claim without.
And you can't call it a cult because it's less.
They certainly are.
Because it has a stigma. The word cult has a stigma.
Denying, defending, delaying these claims.
Call it the family. That's even creepier.
Ensuring that they provide all of the documentation that they need.
But like Fallout, you know, the followers of the apocalypse. That's pretty much Jehovah's Witnesses, aren't they? Followers of the apocalypse. At least by naming conventions.
Certainly has a significant impact on our clients.
One law firm is representing 10 former Jehovah's Witnesses.
There's a number of cases that have been commenced as courageous survivors do come forward and speak out about abuse within this organisation, and these matters are just now getting to court. So I think that it won't be long until there is a legal consideration of the duties of the Jehovah's Witness organisations to members of their congregations.
Wait, the Jehovah's Witnesses should run to the Vatican?
As an 11-year-old girl growing up in the remote Queensland town of Mount Isa, Amy Whitby says she was sexually abused inside the home her family shared with another Jehovah's Witness family.
The job of an elder is to shepherd the congregation, to look after the flock, to keep them safe. That's their job because we're Jehovah's people. And it's their job to keep us safe, and they failed.
Amy's mother says she
Good
complained
Lord.
about the alleged abuse to a witness elder.
Well, they closed Epstein's Island, so you got to go somewhere, right?
In my friend's home, but I was never believed. I was told that I was mental. They used my illness against me because I had that breakdown and I suffered manic depression. And so they used that against me.
As part of Amy's case, she's claiming that the elders must have known the alleged abuser had been convicted the previous year of offences against an 8-year-old boy.
Yeah, it's like a micronation within Italy.
Those elders would not have known that he was charged, arrested by the police and charged, and then went to court. There's just no way they would have not known about it.
No, they have their own. It's technically not its own country, but
You know, people spy on each other. You're told it's your responsibility. You hear something about someone, you are to report it.
The Jehovah's Witnesses say local elders weren't aware of the prior conviction, and regardless, the organisation isn't responsible for the acts of its members within the family home. Despite Teresa's complaints, the man remained in the congregation and even gave Bible readings and talks from the stage.
It would make me so angry. It would make me so angry to the point that I would get up and I'd go outside and I'd just pace. And I'd just pace and I'd just be going around and around and around, and just that anger, because all I wanted to do was run in there and scream at them that he shouldn't be allowed up there. Why is he allowed up there? My room was completely dark.
After 30 years of suffering the consequences, Amy is now suing the local Jehovah's Witness congregation and the Australian head office.
Our job is holding them accountable in terms of...
I feel like what happened had a bit of a domino effect on the rest of my life, with things that happened to me after. So, yeah, you know, I wonder sometimes what my life would have been like if that hadn't have happened. Would my self-confidence, my self-worth.
After 2 years of legal wrangling, Amy Whitby's case is now headed to trial. It would be the first time in Australia that the Jehovah's Witness organisation has defended sexual abuse allegations in court.
The courts in overseas jurisdictions have found that they have been found to hold a duty of care to children, and they have been found liable for breaching that duty of care. And we think that the Australian courts will make that same determination when they're called on to do
Shine liars, huh? She definitely looks a bit shiny.
Most major religious groups named by the Royal Commission have apologised and taken steps towards compensating victims of abuse.
We're not seeing any of that in terms of responses from the Jehovah's Witnesses. Since the Royal Commission, ourselves, we've resolved over 900 cases.
It's over 900. Oh wait, that's not 9,000.
$50 million in compensation. Not one of those cases has been resolved successfully against the Jehovah's Witness organisation.
The organisation says there is no evidence that the Jehovah's Witnesses are guilty of institutional
Australasia, shit. Any Jehovah's Witnesses in Malaysia have to fucking go for a trek, don't they?
Fair and principled manner. But it long resisted
New
joining
Zealand,
a redress scheme
wherever.
designed to help victims, agreeing to sign up only after it was threatened with the loss of its charity status.
There's a number of
as soon as their tax exemption was threatened, they fucking puckered up.
Institution, there's tax benefits. So one way that the government could ensure that this organisation was more child safe is to remove some of those benefits that it gets from their status, to remove those until they can prove that they are a child safe organisation.
The people who break away from the Jehovah's Witnesses pay a terrible price. They remain cut off from their families and closest friends, those they love the most.
Within the ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, we do it once a year, is a Memorial Day. I did it a few times. You take a bunch of flowers and a card to mourn the loss of your family and leave it on the door of a Kingdom Hall. It's like a death, and that's where I've come to terms with. Mum died 3 weeks ago, and I just got I knew it was coming at some point, and I just got a text message from my brother say, "Oh, by the way, Mum died yesterday of stomach cancer, doesn't want a funeral, didn't want a fuss," and that's it, Jeff.
Bill Hahn also grieves for his 3 oldest children, who continue to shun him.
So really for the last 10 years, from when the reality of it set in, that okay, they view me as dead, that you almost mourn in reverse. I've just had to grieve the fact that, look, until they wake up themselves and leave and come out of the religion, that basically I just have to view them as that they've passed away, which is not nice, but it's a way of coping.
I knew I would definitely be shunned by friends, but I honestly didn't think my siblings would shun me.
Yeah, it's
because of what we'd all been through together.
money out of
One little
nowhere.
grandson was with his dad, and his dad let him speak to me, and he said, I'm forgetting you, Nanny. And he said, I'm sorry, Nanny. And I said to him, well, I'll never forget you. I said, I will always want you to remember that.
Fucked up. South Africa, Mormon. I mean, we all made fun of it, but it got a bit heavy towards the end. I mean, that shit about mourning your family that isn't even dead sort of deal, that is heavy. It's heavy. Right, let's find something else. Let's find something a bit more light-hearted to watch.